welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. This is the place where we take a no bullshit look at life's little lessons. Here, together, we find the spiritual glory in even the most wicked hard story. This is a journey from fear back to love and how we can find our greatest strength and happiness in some of the most unlikely places. I believe that if you're willing to change your mind, you can totally change your life. So, are you ready to rewrite your story and choose to live free? Let's do this. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show, episode 83. You know what I'm calling this sucker, you guys? I'm calling this sucker, I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always this way. And I've got a few thoughts about this, so let me dive right in. Number one, when we hear that statement, I wasn't always this way, it's so often like negative, right? Like I just try to think back to like all the stories I've heard about people, and it's like, it didn't always used to be this way, you know? It used to be good times and now it's whatever. And it's like, I didn't always used to be this way. I didn't always have a closed heart. But after my so-and-so left me, betrayed me, cheated on me, died, whatever, fill in the blank, then I became like this, right? It's like some version of, I wasn't always like this. Like meaning like, however you are now is kind of fucked up or whatever. This is actually the opposite of that. What I'm saying is I wasn't always the way, like I wasn't always this way, meaning the way that I am now. Excuse me, which I hope is a positive thing, is a better thing. I'm, at my core, I was always this thing, right? At our core, we are always perfect, innocent, beautiful, holy children of God, God's kids. Children of the universe, the divine, whatever you want to say. I don't care. You know me. I don't get hung up on that stuff. At our essence, we were always this way. But I always say this work that I do with people in spiritual mentoring, it's kind of like spiritual reclamation, right? I always say it's deep personal and spiritual work. It is personality rehab. That's what's happening here. So let's dive into this and why this topic came up for me. I wasn't always this way, meaning I wasn't always happy and peaceful. I just wasn't. That's just a fact. And so my sweetie, some of you know, my sweetie Chris, my husband, is a professional musician, and he had a gig this past weekend. And it was an outdoor gig. It was really interesting. It was an outdoor gig in a parking lot at a club where normally they would play inside, but instead they built a stage outside and they drew these like big yellow boxes on the concrete where the parking spots normally would be. And so like when you signed up, you would get one of those little boxes and you just brought your own chairs and like you just kind of packed it. And like when you left your box, you put on your mask, and like it was really fascinating, and it was wicked nice out. It was the perfect day. So I was super excited because I hadn't been out to a show in a super duper long time. And I didn't have one of those boxes. I just packed my ass on a chair, like off to the side, out of the way, you know, away from everybody else. But one of the people that also came to the gig was my childhood boyfriend. And this was a guy that I started seeing like after my senior year. So in between my senior year of high school, I graduated from Lawrence High, and right before I went off to Boston University, to BU. That summer is when we started dating. And there was a little age discrepancy, right? So he was 15, I was 17. But then his birthday is like a few weeks before mine. So then he became 16 and I turned 18 around the time. So we were like in that age, think 15 to 18-year-old age, right? But he was a couple of years younger than me. And so he was at the gig, and I've known, obviously I've known him for like 30 friggin' years. So by the time you guys are listening to this and hearing this, I have turned 52. So my birthday's on October 4th. So it was just my birthday by the time you're hearing this. And so I've known, oh my God, I've known Francis for like a gazillion years, like since I was 17 years old. One of the longest standing like friendships and relationships that I have. And we were cracking up laughing because as I was driving down to this gig, it was in Danvers. And, you know, there's this weird age gap around the time that I got my license. You know, a lot of people, you know, they get their license earlier in high school and they end up driving around their area if they have a car, that's assuming they have a car. I didn't get my license until I was 17, like right as I was kind of almost getting ready to go away to college. So I had it for a little bit of time, like I think at the end of my senior year, or I don't even think I had it. I think I got it the summer, like after I graduated, if I have to be honest. I don't know, who knows? My memory might be a little squirrely on that. But so I literally like got a car and then like moved to Boston. So it's not like I was driving around. And I think in Lawrence, and I think there's this really fascinating thing that happens where, you know, if you stayed in the area, so basically I moved to Boston and then I moved to LA, right? So those formative years of like really starting to know how to navigate the different places where you lived. And so much of me, like my sister sometimes would be like, how do you not know where that is? And I was like, I don't know. I was always in the back seat. I wasn't paying attention. Like I didn't get my license until I was like 17, almost 18. And then I went off to Boston. Like I know how to get around Boston probably maybe, but it was just kind of funny. So I have to push in like into my GPS, like how to get to Danvers. And I know, and I'm just like, oh, it's going to be like, you know, 93 to 495 to like whatever. Well, as I'm driving, all of a sudden you hear the Siri voice go, in 900 feet, take this exit. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why is Siri taking me down? Like, why am I going 114? None of this is making sense. And I'm sure to the people who like drove around here forever, like, yeah, okay, that actually makes a ton of sense. But you got to imagine, like, I'm like, Siri, you're so stupid. Shut up. Right. Like, as I'm driving off the ramp, as I come off the ramp, all of a sudden I'm like I go from having this like, you know, like my face is wrinkled. Like if you're watching me right now instead of listening, if you YouTube the show and you watch me do these shows versus just listen, you can see my face. It's like this face I make when I'm like, that's stupid, right? I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this? So all of a sudden I realize where I am though. And it is just like a fucking trip down memory lane. It's like, oh my God, I am just seeing like place after place after place after place from my childhood. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the Market Basket where my mother would take us food shopping, right? She'd pile us all into the car. I'm like, oh my God, how did Denrock become a condo place? There's condos at Denrock. This is where we used to party in the woods. And oh my God, that Kohl's used to be a Kmart. That's where like I shoplifted some mittens for Marie Therian because her hands were cold when we were partying up at Denrock, right? Like I'm just totally going down like memory lane. And all of a sudden I see a building and this story, I'm being a little cheeky because I'm not going to tell the whole thing just because I'm saving it for my book. But let's just say I see something and I realize like, why is this building triggering this memory for me? Okay. So later on, when I see my childhood boyfriend, I ask him, does this building mean anything to you? Because there's only one person I can really think of that I would probably be in this building with. And it was probably you. And we were just kind of laughing. So we were like, I was going down this memory lane and thinking about my younger self, thinking about my younger, tortured, traumatized, and suffering self. And how I used to be, you guys, so unhappy and so like I was an intrinsically, I think, naturally happy kid, but there was so much intense. Like my childhood was so intense. And look, I understand like whose wasn't. A lot of people's adulthoods are still wicked intense. I think just being in the world right now is re-traumatizing for a lot of people, right? I mean, there's a lot of shit that is going on right now that just feels like I'm in some sort of science. I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? But so when I think back though to that childhood self, and all the things that happen, and what's so interesting is when I was talking to Andre on the an episode 2 episodes ago, my writing mentor, and we were just kind of talking about, you know, the stories of our childhood. It's like so interesting because I think a lot of times when people think of me or think of my story, one of the first things they think about, like the headline news is like mother murdered when I'm 12, right? And I'm like, but there was so much shit that happened before that, and there was so much shit that happened after that, hence why I'm writing a book, right? And so I just think like, oh my God, there were so many things that happened. But definitely one of the things that happened after my mother was killed is that I was not happy. I was really not at peace, and I was definitely angry. And there was a period of time when like I just hated everything. I would just be like, that's stupid. I hate that. Right. Like, and they called me like Miss Attitude, like Miss Attitude. Like I had an attitude problem. I fucking hated everything, and everything was stupid, and I didn't want to do that. And like, and it's interesting because on the, like on the outside, right, on the outside, like I'm wicked popular at school, and I'm on the softball team, and I'm on home, you know, student council, and I do the homeroom thing, and I'm on the yearbook, and I win most popular, and I'm captain of the cheerleaders, and I'm doing all the things, and I'm dating, you know, a kid 2 years older than me who's like also a star athlete. Everybody knows his fan, blah blah. On the outside, everything looks pretty good. On the inside, it was a shit show. On the inside, there was so much going on that I kept to myself, that I didn't share with people. So I wasn't fucking happy, and I wasn't peaceful. You know, when my sweetie and I were talking about this the other day, we were kind of talking about this podcast episode. And I said, sweetie, like, what do you think the heartbeat of this thing is? Like, what's the foundation of what I'm trying to say? And he knows me really well. And we were just kind of talking about, you know, when I do these podcast episodes, of course, I want them to be valuable. Like I want them to be helpful. I always say I want it to either educate, elevate, enlighten, or entertain. I want there to be these aspects because you're giving me time, right? Like I'm in your ear right now. If you can hear the sound of my voice, you made a conscious choice to say, yeah, I'm going to listen to KK today. So that, you know, me showing up and trying to, you know, not just like go on and on and on, but actually say something of value. And I said to him, you know, so what do you think the heartbeat of this is and the work that I do and all this stuff? And we were just laughing. He's like, I would just say it like this. I would break it down like this. I wasn't always this way. Now I am always this way. And I can show you how I became this way and how to maintain it. And I just thought it was, and I'm not saying this isn't about being like me, like, oh, this is about like being a little KK follower or like drinking the Kool-Aid. It's not about that, but it is about these concepts of happiness and peace and deep connection to self and source and spirit, a deep knowing of myself as a child of God, an extension of love, right? And I thought that that was so powerful. I wasn't always this way. Now I am always this way. And I can also show you, and that's the spiritual mentoring piece, right? Like that's the work that I do in spiritual mentoring is I can show you how I got this way and how I maintain it, because it's easy to slip back. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to feel victimized right now, right? Like and there's a lot going on. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm very clear what's happening in the political stratosphere and the social structures. I'm not saying that. I am not a person who turns my face away from the darkness. It's not that. I'm talking about how, you know, how I can maintain being, I kind of say it like this, like I was made for these times. Like my childhood kind of prepared me, you know, my life kind of prepared me for these extra weird times in this wicked, weird world we find ourselves in. But I wasn't always able to maintain a sense of calm or peace or happiness or positivity or what's the word I'm looking for? And I don't think of it like a false Pollyanna-ish, right? Like that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like, I think it's a very radical thing right now. Like when people ask you, you know, how are you doing? You know, there's always this part of my mind that stops and says, well, if I say I'm doing great, does that make me an asshole? Like if I say like, I'm doing good, you know, thanks, you know, whatever. Because I know how much suffering is happening right now. And it doesn't mean that I don't cry and I don't feel my feelings and I don't rage sometimes against like the stupidest shit that I see on the news. It's not that. But overall, I maintain a pretty happy and cheerful and peaceful and dedicated and devoted to the divine, to the light kind of a life. And so, you know, the way that you get that way, though, the way that, like, when you have all that trauma, right, there's obviously lots of different practices that you can do. I can only talk about what I've done. I can only talk about my path. It's the only thing I'm a fucking expert on is me, right? It's the only thing I know how to share, like what was helpful are the tools that I have personally used. And that's how I am. I won't, like, I've often said to my friends, even if I know you and I love you, and let's say, I'll just say, like, you're a massage therapist or you have some skill set, right? I'm not going to refer you to people, even if I love you, until I've had work with you, until I have personally experienced it myself. That's part of my makeup. If you know anything about human design, and if you don't, go and listen to my episode with Kelsey Abbott. But anything about human design, one of the things I've come to really learn about myself is that I have to try everything for myself. I have to find out for myself. And then once I've done that, then I can actually make a referral, a recommendation, or pass on some wisdom. But I've got to go first and do it first and feel it first and think about it first and experience it before I'm of any help to anybody else. So I can't talk about what another person's experience is. I can try to put myself in their shoes. I could try to understand or relate. I could definitely have empathy or sympathy. But the only thing I'm a real authority on or have any agency about is me and what I do and what I've done, who I was and who I am and where hopefully I'm going. And even that I can't predict, right? From day to day. I'm asking every day. I call on my spiritual team every day to guide my steps. And if you listened to last week's episode, you heard me talk about that, right? We can't ask the divine to guide our steps. We can't ask God to guide our feet, right? You can't say, oh, guide my life, if you're then not willing to move your damn feet and to walk and to do the work. And that's part of this. How I kind of became this way as a more, like, energetic, happy, positive, solutions focused, solutions oriented, not wanting to feel like a victim, trying to not so much take control of my life, but feel like, that I am taken care of. That the divine works on when I say my behalf, meaning it brings me what I need. Sometimes what I need is to get knocked on my ass, right? Sometimes what I need is to shut the fuck up and get quiet. Sometimes what I need is a real win, an easy win where it's like, yeah, here we go, right? Sometimes I need, like, there's a great quote. I cannot off the top of my head remember who said it, so I apologize about that. But it's something like, souls are like athletes. They need worthy opponents, right? To get stronger and to grow. And I think my life has been a really, really worthy opponent. It's really given me lots of opportunities to get stronger and to grow. And the ways that I've become like this, I always say I am this way now because I do very specific things. And I talk about this, about creating daily devotionals, daily spiritual practices where there is dedication, and there is determination, and there is discipline. And we're a world that really doesn't like a lot of discipline. There are some people, I think, who are kind of engineered in a way where it's really, they love it, right? They're like, I would say, like, some profession, not all, I'm not putting anybody in a box, but people who tend to do, like, hardcore sports, right? Like triathletes and professional athletes, people who have to repetitively show up and practice their drills and practice their skills, and people who, right, have meditation practices where each day they sit their ass down or they do their spiritual work or whatever. So I can just say that. So it's daily determination, dedication, discipline, and devotion, where you are devoted to something greater than yourself. Right. And it's from, I always say, I did a whole episode on this, that I believe discipline leads to freedom. Right. I think doing something enough times, it's just like building those muscles, and then, you can go into the game and it becomes second nature. And that's what I'm saying. I wasn't always this way. I didn't always used to pause and question my thoughts. I didn't always used to consider, like, I might be wrong. I didn't always used to want to be happy instead of right. When A Course in Miracles asked that question, do you prefer to be right or happy? The answer used to be both. I wanted both. I wanted to be right and happy. Then I was just like, no, I want to be happy. And then I realized, like, no, I want to be right. Right. I was really attached to being right. But then I realized, well, in order for me to be right, other people have to be wrong. So then I'm like, yeah, I think I would rather just be happy. because quote unquote right is often this construct of the ego anyways. So having daily spiritual practices like prayer and meditation, for some people it's journaling, for some people it's a gratitude practice, a loving kindness meditation, passage meditation. For some people it's yoga. For me, it also includes reading, right? This, as you can tell, I have books like all over my house. So reading, for some people, you know, they do like daily scripture reading, like the people who are into the Bible and stuff like that. You know, but I do some sort of spiritual reading each day for sure. I also like to have deep conversations. I don't think that a lot gets solved in this world without us talking to each other and being willing to have deep conversations, being willing to listen to opposing points of view. So there's all these practices and all these things that I do on a daily basis where I literally ask for my thoughts, my words, and my actions to be guided. But all of that wouldn't be possible if I didn't first start to discipline myself enough to just slow down, to not just jump to and make assumptions about people. And it doesn't mean that a crazy thought doesn't sometimes get through, right? I am not fucking perfect. I mean, I don't believe that. I don't really think there's actually perfection anyways. I think that's another construct that keeps us stuck in a box. But I kind of like to live my life way more creatively now, like out of curiosity instead of judgment, right? Out of interest rather than like having an agenda, right? But I do ask every day to be guided. And then I trust the guidance that I receive. But in order to trust, right? In order to trust any kind of inspired idea that I might get from my spiritual team or from my inner teacher, Holy Spirit, I have to trust it, right? I'm not just going to do something willy-nilly. Like, you know, there was a period of my life where it was like, I didn't fucking trust anything or anybody. Then it was like I was kind of in this wicked extended like trust fall. You know those trust falls that they would have you do as kids, where or whatever, you're at some event and they like have you like just cross your arms, close your eyes, and fall back, and you had to trust that the bastards behind you were going to catch you. I felt like my life for a while there was like a wicked long trust fall, and I had no idea how that shit was going to turn out. But at some point, I was willing to make the leap of faith, and sometimes I was dropped, which didn't help, and then sometimes I was caught. But now I feel like I'm always going to be caught, even if I don't necessarily understand the outcome at the time. I have such faith. I have such faith that I am loved, that I know that even when I don't like it or understand it at first, that there's a purpose to it. That it is like, that it is marinating me for some wiser some wiser understanding to come. And part of it has just been also trusting, leaning into the mystery, right? But all these things that I do and that I teach, right? It's why I love one-to-one mentoring, is because I get to have really intimate experiences, where I'm holding a space for healing to happen. We are holding a space for us to revision the stories, to revise what's happened, to find purpose and meaning so that we can surrender them and let them go. And also, yeah, if you're listening to this week, on my birthday, on Sunday, October 4th, I opened up 4 spots for one-to-one mentoring with me. And I always say to people, look, I'm not going to lie. It is an investment. It is a financial investment. It's a significant investment, but it's also an investment of your time, your energy, your spirit. Mentally, you got to show up, right? I don't half-ass this. Like, I go all in. So I want that from the people who say yes to. And that's why there's an application that you fill out. That's why there's a conversation that happens before I take your money, where we decide, like, yeah, this is something we kind of know what this is about. And and I always say, look, it's not easy. It's not easy. And it takes work. But I honestly don't know what's more important than this kind of work. I'm not talking about, oh, your kids aren't important and your health isn't important. What I'm saying is your happiness and peace, your peace of mind and your internal well-being, it's so fucking important, you guys, because it affects everything else that you do. You know, a lot of people talk about this concept of, like, you know, it's been around, right? Hurt people. And I'm like, I just want to help people to become happier people, because happy people tend not to hurt people, not on purpose anyways, not intentionally. And hurt adults are often wounded children who never got the care that they needed. They didn't have the tools in their toolkit, the spiritual toolkit that they needed. Nobody was sitting us down and talking to us. How do we talk about our dead parents or our divorced parents, or the fact that one of my parents might be incarcerated, or one of my parents is mentally ill, or one of my guardians sexually abuses me, or this happened, or that happened, or that happened. And I just see it time and time and time again. You know, I always say I work with adults, but what I really work with is wounded kids who have undealt with shit. And I don't think there's anything more important than getting your shit together, like cutting the crap already, getting your mind right, changing your story. Like when I say rewrite your story, it doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge where we came from, because so much of where we're going is about where we're coming from. We got to know where we're coming from. We got to know how. I always say to people, and sometimes it's like, you know, I'll also say, I might be contradicting myself a little bit here, but sometimes I'll say, it doesn't matter how we got here. We're here now. And it doesn't matter how you got it. It's yours now. It's like, now what? What are we going to do with this? And I talk about that, like moving from the why to the what. So I have all these different tools, all these different practices, and I pull from all kinds of different faith backgrounds. I'm a spiritual mutt. I use the tool that is most efficient to get the job done. I don't try to put God in any one particular box. You know, I don't try to come at it as a, you know, I was raised a Catholic kid. There's still a part of me that's still very much like, I feel those roots. You know, I don't say, oh, I'm a recovering Catholic. And I don't necessarily walk around saying like claiming it on my shirt, like, oh, Catholic kid, but that's what I was. And there's parts of that upbringing that still reside within my heart, you know, but I'm also a longtime yoga teacher. I'm a longtime yoga student. I'm also like, you know, over 25 years. Also almost 30 years as a Course in Miracles student, almost over 20 years as a passage meditation practitioner, you know, and on and on and on. So I pull from a lot of different things. I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of courses. I've been through a lot of trainings, you know what I mean? And you know, somebody said to me the other day, you know, you would have made a really fantastic therapist. And I have two thoughts about that. You know, I often say like, well, number one, I almost went to Goddard College too. My old counselor, my old therapist in California, Daphne Rose Kingma, she actually wrote me a beautiful, not testimonial, they weren't testimonies, recommendations, a referral letter, way back when, because I was thinking about maybe going into that. And then obviously the divine said, no, you're going to be a yoga teacher instead, and you're going to take this other path. And I think that I have a lot more freedom as a spiritual mentor to try different things and to speak a particular way and to say things that maybe I wouldn't be able to say. Now, I'm not a therapist, so I can't say this is 100% true. But I do think that I have a lot more room for me to bring in tools and to try things. And whether that's breath work and pranayama, or, you know, like I said, like meditation, or as a gateless writing facilitator, a gateless writing teacher, a creativity facilitator, being able to help people, you know, extract their stories and to rewrite them and to find their voice. Like there's 1,000 ways is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if there's any work, again, I really believe this, it's more important than you getting your mind right, you getting your shit together, like helping people to stop feel victimized by their lives. Now, this doesn't mean, I always want to be wicked clear, it doesn't mean that there aren't people in the world who are trying to victimize others. It's just that at a certain age, right, we get to have the authority and the agency, the autonomy to decide for ourselves. And I think that that's like wicked, wicked important. And one of the things that I get to do as a teacher, and I'm going to maybe do like a whole podcast episode on this. And my teacher, Ishwaran, said this so beautifully one time. He said, you want to light your torch from your teacher's fire. Oh, I love that so much. You want to light your torch from your teacher's fire. And that's how I think of one-to-one spiritual mentoring. You light your torch off of, that would be me in this case, right? My fire. And I've told this story once before, you know, when I was graduating from my spiritual mentoring certification course. It was like a year-long program, and it was intensive and it was amazing. And we, you know, we looked at everything. We studied all different kinds of stuff, shamanism, and like just everything. I thought like just generous listening, how to be a deep and generous listener, how to give compassionate feedback, which is something that I already am pretty skilled at through being a gateless writing teacher, et cetera, et cetera. It was just the most powerful thing. And on the day of our graduation, you know, my spiritual mentor at the time, Reverend Stephanie Rutt, came over, and I said she was whispering in everybody's ears, you know, some little nugget, some little, you know, golden wisdom gift in their ear, as she gave them a rose. And when she got to me, she said to me, "You are on fire for God. You are on fire for God. And don't ever let anybody put that flame out." And she said, "You're like a wild horse, like running across the field, like whoo, setting everything on fire around you." And I mean on fire in a good way, not burning it down to like destroy it, like not that, but like just lighting it up, you know, with my passion for the divine. And that's how I feel. And I'm a spiritual mentor on purpose. I don't say I'm a life coach. You know, I do help people with their life. You do this work and it changes your life. And if you're an entrepreneur, it changes your business, right? And if you're an employee, it changes you being a better employee. If you're a parent, you know, that's the whole thing. You know, to me, there's no more important work than this. And, you know, the thing is we, you know, we get to ask ourselves, you know, do we want to ignore this? Do we want to ignore this work? Like if we're finding ourselves, right? Like, again, going back to, I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always this way. People ask my sweetie that all the time. Is she always like that? And he's like, yeah. I have trained my mind over time. And I always say it like that movie Poltergeist. I know I say it on all the different episodes, and I'll be like, go to the light, Carol Ann. Like I do. I don't ignore the darkness, but I know that the answer isn't there. The healing doesn't happen in the past, and we're not in the future yet. All we have is this present moment. The miracle is in this moment. And what I'm really good at is creating a safe container of non-judgment to really look at things, to stand by your side and to hold your hand on this journey until you're ready to take a greater hand so that you can light your torch from my fire. And I'm not claiming myself as like, that sounds like a cultish leader kind of thing. Like, oh, like what is she saying? That she's God now? It's like, no, I'm talking about my enthusiasm for deep connection to yourself, to your source, and to your spirit. And I think that's the heartbeat also of creativity. And when A Course in Miracles says, child of God, you were born to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. You were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. I didn't always know that, but now I do. And now that I do, I try to keep my mind tuned into that. I try to keep my mind attuned to the vibration of the divine. I try to keep myself in deep connection and communion and communication with the part of my mind that is not insane, the part of my mind that has never forgotten God's love, has never forgotten my identity and my purpose. And this is the work that I love to share with others. So if this resonates with you at all, you know, you can find it. You just go to my website. You go to KarenKenney.com. There's a work with me little link. And you just click on, boop, spiritual mentoring. And that's how you find it. And like I said, I'm only opening up to 4 people because these relationships, it's either 6 months or 12 months. And they're intense. And I mean intensive. We go deep. They're deep, intimate experiences. Like I said, where I walk along beside you for like 6 months. And it's about learning to take these tools and to apply it. It's moving from the head to the heart and out into the hands, like out into the world. Because it's not enough to theorize about these things. You know, you ever have like a problem and somebody's like, oh, read this book, and you read the book, and at the end of it, you're like, yeah, but like, well, now what? Like, what do I do with this? This is like true blue, hands-on, first, like firsthand experience. This is about taking big spiritual concepts, bringing them down to earth and living them and applying them and practicing them. It's why I love A Course in Miracles so much. The 365 daily workbook lessons. It is a course in mind training. It is training you to relinquish fear and step into love, step into what I call the fearless flow of your life. And we do this work together to transform your story to your glory. And it's very powerful stuff because I wasn't always this way. But you guys, I'm telling you, now I am. And I have so many tools, and I'm not saying it like I'm special. I earned these. When I look at my toolbox and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a hammer, there's tweezers, there's a Phillips, there's this, there's a ratchet thing, there's like Allen wrenches, there's some nails, there's some screws, there's this, there's a ruler, there's a thing that, what's that thing? There's a square, there's a freaking compass thingy, you know, there's a fucking tape measure. I'm like, yeah, I earned those tools. I put those suckers in there, but I'm not keeping them just for myself to build my own house. I'm trying to build safe places and containers. It's why I created my spiritual membership, The Nest, because I wanted to create a safe space where people could come and catch their breath and grow their wings and then go out and build nests in their own community. So if this interests you at all, you guys, I'm just going to encourage you again, right? There's only 4 spots, and I do that on purpose because the people that I'm working with, I want to be able to be really present with them. And I don't want to be distracted or feel overwhelmed in any way by like 15 clients or 12 clients, right? I work with a small group of people at a time, meaning that they're individual clients. But we also do still have like a monthly group call so they get to know each other, because it's really helpful to know that you're not alone when you're doing this work, right? So I was just kind of thinking about that too, right? Like circling back to that. When I say I wasn't always this way, it's often denoted as being like really negative, right? But this isn't that. This is like, I wasn't always this happy. I used to be kind of cranky and a little like, and again, to the people who were closest to me, because I felt safe enough to reveal how unhappy I was. On the surface, it looked one particular way, but underneath it all, there was suffering. And, you know, when I think about how much time I wasted trying to do it other ways, like, you know, when I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, like I tried the drinking, I tried sex, I tried the drugs, I tried shopping, I tried this, I tried that, right? I tried 1,000 ways to distract myself. I tried that. And I'm like, oh yeah, none of this works. And if it works, what does it work for like 5 fucking minutes, right? Like you feel better temporarily. And now it's like, I mean, throw in social media and the 1,000 ways people try to distract or numb or whatever, you know? And at the end of the day, like, you know, that's the other thing too, like to ignore your unhappiness, it's going to affect everything else. It's going to affect everything else in your life. If you ignore, and it might just not be a general like sense of, it might just be, you know, you feel like you don't fit in, you feel like you don't belong, you feel like you're left out, you feel like you're lost, you feel disconnected, you feel numb, maybe you feel murderous, maybe you feel rage, maybe you feel wicked sad, maybe you feel depressed, right? It's like there's 1,000 ways to experience discontent. There's 1,000 ways to feel disconnected. There's 1,000 ways to feel fear. And so if you're not like feeling happy and peaceful, which is our natural inheritance on a pretty, and it can be had, right? This world can make you feel like maybe you shouldn't be happy and peaceful given how much suffering there is. So it's not really like celebrated that much in that way, because it can seem like maybe you're wicked shallow if you have any joy in your heart. Like how can you have joy in your heart when we look around and we see the fucking mess, the mess that is. But I choose to see the divine everywhere. And it's not always easy, because I also do see, of course, as a vegan, I mean, of course, I've chosen to be vegan for that very reason, because I've seen how much suffering there is and I don't want to contribute to it, right? I don't want to be a part of any animal being abused or raped, or to be a part of that system where there's suffering, right? So it's not like I don't see it. But I always say I'm in this world, but not of this world. So we can't solve the problems of this world, but the level of thinking that is creating this world, as Einstein says. We need a higher consciousness, a different consciousness. We need better tools in our toolkit. And, you know, I didn't used to have those tools. That's why I didn't used to be this way. I used to be scared out of my mind, wicked anxious, I mean, whatever. I could go on and on and on. But now I know that I can always stop and question my thoughts. I know that I can stop and question the authority. I can stop and question, wait, what? I can stop and question what I read and what I see and what I hear. And I could be willing to have conversations. I'm not so attached to my opinions that I have to be right anymore. You know what I'm saying? These are not little things. These are wicked important things. And yeah, wasn't always this way. Now I am this way. And I can show you too how I got this way and how to maintain it. So if that speaks to your heart, people, I want to hear from you. So reach out to me. You can also just go to my website and hit the connect button, and you can send me a little message. But if you're serious about it, you can, when you go to the spiritual mentoring page, you'll see the 2 buttons for the different options, 6 months or 12 months. And if you feel it, and you're ready, if you're ready to make that investment on all those different levels, man, fill out the application. Let's have a conversation, because there's very few people that I talk to when I feel like, and if I feel like I can't help you, if I feel like, whatever's going on is out of my capability or not my lane, I will refer you to somebody else, or I will suggest like maybe something else. I don't just take everybody's money to take it. I don't operate that way. It's got to feel like a wicked good fit. It's got to feel like a good, energetic and emotional and just kind of, spiritual fit. And I always ask my spiritual team, like, what about this one? And it's not about a judgment. It's just, I don't want to take people's money if I don't feel like I can actually help them get some good results. And I don't want to take people's money who aren't really in it to win it. Meaning, like, I don't want to be fighting you the whole time. I don't want you to be fighting me for your limitations. This is about, like, and just because you're ready, like I sometimes say to people too, like, are you ready to do this? And they're like, I think so. And I'm like, yeah, just because you are ready doesn't mean you're also not still a little scared. Right? Because big change can feel wicked scary. But you don't have to do it alone. Nobody can do the work for you, but you don't have to do it alone. And, when A Course in Miracles says, if you knew who walked beside you on this way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. In the beginning, though, it is wicked scary. And so it's really nice to know that you have somebody to walk along beside you. And again, that's the part that I do, is that I hold your hand until you're ready to take the hand of something greater. And you guys, I believe it, writing books, speaking, and mentoring. This is my ministry. This is my mission. This is my purpose and my message. This is why I'm here. And whether you call it a calling or a mandate or a divine assignment, I have no doubt that my torch has been lit from some incredible teachers, Marianne Williamson and Eknath and like go on and on and on and on, right? Like, I'm not doing this to be like, oh, look how special I am, right? But my torch has been lit by some pretty incredible people. And now, as A Course in Miracles says, you are the light of the world. So be able to enhance other people's torches, to light from the light of your teacher, is one of the things that I love to do. So thank you so much for tuning in and for listening. And if you're finding yourself a particular way that no longer serves you, no longer feels good, and you're like, man, I don't want to be this way anymore. Then, like they say, I wasn't always like this. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but clearly it's not working anymore. And I wasn't always this way. And that's the other thing, that I love about that saying, if you knew who walked beside you on this way that you have chosen. And in every moment you're choosing to either stay stuck in your patterns, in your history, in your trauma, in your grief, in your suffering, or you're choosing to turn towards the light and to say, there must be a better way. There must be a better way. You make that declaration, right? To the divine, to God, to the universe, to your spiritual team. And then I answer, and I'm willing to help you find it. And that's how we do it, because we are better together. Okay, we are better together. But whether you do or you don't do, it is a choice. Just know that you are making that choice to either do this work or to not do this work. And only you know when it's time. And if it's time for you and you're ready, I would be so honored if you wanted to do this work alongside me. So you guys, thank you so much. I'm assuming I'm probably going to have an amazing birthday. I'm probably excited. I'm wicked happy that I'm 52, because I'm back in the even years by the time you hear this. And I love the even years, right? I'm like, 51 was kind of weird. I'm like, I'm psyched for 52. And then 54, 55, 56, and even because 55 is like a matching number. So that's wicked fun. So I'm psyched for 52. I hope you have an incredible rest of your week. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for giving me part of your time today. And as I always say, you guys, wherever you go, whoever you bump into, whoever you talk to, whatever you do, man, please leave those people, those places, those critters, those creatures, the environment better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.